part of the proposal, we are not proposing any filling of the wetlands in conjunction with the project. Now, looking at staying with the survey sheet, we've identified two basic watershed divides. Everything for the entire property, everything drains to the south central shoreline drainage basin, and it flows off-site and gets down through this system and eventually ties in with the Oyster River. For the purpose of performing our drainage analysis, we did split the site into two distinct watershed areas. And the reason for that, there's basically a ridge that runs right through here on the parking, such that there's a high point right about back where the stairs are, so all this drainage flows to the north. Once we get to here, it flows to the south and then down to the east. Likewise, in the rear, that same high point comes up, and this water all kind of drains back towards these two detention basins up here, and everything drains to the detention basin here. So the outfalls from this detention basin come down through a pipe system and discharge into a swale area off-site. The discharge for this detention basin comes down to a flared end section right about in this location, and then is eventually discharged into the off-site wetlands going back and through that area. The site topography, we've got approximately 50 feet of relief from the low point to the high point. Our low point in the site is basically right down at that southeast corner of the property at approximate elevation 8. The main plateau area for the existing facility is relatively flat. We're running between elevations 50 and 54. So the actual developed property is generally flat. We do have some very steep slopes located just along our western borderline. And what you'll see is there's a retaining wall that pretty much parallels the westerly property line. And the extreme grades up and through here are up around 64, 65 up along the westerly property line. There's also a very small area that's within the regulated FEMA boundary, and that's located right down in that southwest corner. Again, there's a 100-year flood elevation of elevation 9 coming down through that point. So if you take a look at the survey sheet, which has the topography on it, you'll see that it basically represents a very small area of the property. So it's basically just right down in that corner there. With regards to the drainage areas and the patterns, what you can also notice is that there's another or some other off-site flow from the west that kind of comes onto our property, meanders down paralleling the southerly property line, gets into this wetland pocket, and then some of this also gets is distributed off-site when there's higher flow rates or more significant storm events that come out. Some of this flow will flow down in a southerly direction and enter into the rear of the Wendy Road properties for both 96 and 95 Wendy Road that come down through there. So there is, and Mr. Andek from Light Sources has had several conversations with the neighbor over here to see if there's anything that we could perhaps do in terms of being a good neighbor to help out with that drainage situation. And I'll get into that in a little bit more detail when we start talking about the proposed plans. And this map is not part of your packet, but it's basically a much larger blow-up area that kind of shows the entire area, both our property as well as everything that's off-site. So again, the area that's outlined in red represents the applicant's site area. We have the town line right here, which comes through with Milford Orange. And then likewise, a little bit further off to the east, we have the town line with West Haven, as Attorney Studer pointed out. That's why we have both municipalities are within 5 feet of the proposed project. So we have Wendy Road, which comes down through here, and these are primarily the residential properties that we were making reference to with being located off to the south end of the property. Oyster River, as you can see, is located just off to the south and east of our property corner through here. And Oyster River would kind of meander down and eventually discharges to the Long Island Sound. So again, our primary access here is through Robinson Boulevard up to Con Air Road and then getting out to Marsh Hill Road, with most of the traffic taking a right-hand turn on the Marsh Hill Road and getting up to the I-95 corridor. So that's where the bulk of the truck traffic comes from, as well as the employees. So on sheet SP1 of your packet, this sheet is included in your drawings. And what we've done on here is just highlighted the pertinent features that are involved with the site. So on sheet SP1, this area depicts the proposed addition in the back, which will be a 22,920 square foot warehouse addition. We have 4 loading docks that are going to be located in conjunction with that warehouse, as well as repaving of the existing parking area up and through the back. Part of what we're looking at doing, and we'll get into it when we see the grading plan, we're looking to do some drainage improvements up along this back end. Right now, this portion of the parking that comes down through here, which is primarily for the truck access, is very flat, and it has a lot of bird baths and dips and valleys in there. So what happens is the water tends to collect through here, and some of it is weeping through the retaining wall. Some of it during the higher or the more significant rainfall events will actually breach over the top of that wall and then flow down onto the parking area. So this area is very flat, so part of what we're looking at doing is basically doing regrading of this whole area through here, so that we could provide approximately a 1% slope along this curb line, which will facilitate the drainage and get that diverted and get that directed down to some catch basins that will show on the grading plan. So in the back area, you could see the proximity of the wetland pocket here and wetland area here. And if we're to do a comparison between the two, what you'll see is that there's really no difference in this back end in terms of the impervious coverage. So this area with the building, if you look at the existing conditions map or the survey sheet, this is all occupied by pavement and parking right now for the loading dock area. So we're just basically substituting paved surface area for the parking with rooftop area. Likewise, the parking that's in the back here is actually going to be shrunk in size a little bit to basically mimic and keep the impervious surface areas identical to what's out there today. So for this whole back area, there's no net increase in any of the impervious surface area. Where we do have an increase is up in the front area. With the addition, that is displacing some of the employee parking, so that is being shifted to the front of the property, and that's located in this area right here, highlighted in gray. So this area represents parking or employee parking for approximately 33 new parking spaces, and we'll have a punch-through access over here to get out to Robinson Boulevard, with that being said. If you take a look at sheet SP3, I can pull it up on the board if you need it, but if you take a look at sheet SP3, we do show that the sloped area in back of the retaining wall of what we're looking to do there in terms of regrading. So we're looking to create a more of a swale that's up in back of that wall, so that we're directing the runoff that comes in from the off-site properties. And again, there's quite a bit of runoff that comes in from the off-site properties, as you can see from here. So right now, we're picking up all of this back area through here, as well as a lot of the back portions of this property right through here. So all this is kind of flowing down unabated onto our property. Some of it's flowing over the retaining wall, some of it's flowing through the retaining wall, some of it's soaking into the ground, and some of it's being redirected around the retaining wall. So with respect to the grading that we're doing there, that's why we're showing the grading activity up and back of that wall, is basically to provide some enhancements to the storm drainage, in conjunction with the proposed development. Okay, so in terms of additional features for the stormwater management, again, these will be on sheet SP3, and I guess we'll try to get that up on there. Okay, so in terms of stormwater enhancements, again, when we did the drainage study and the analysis for this back area, we basically don't need to do anything back here in terms of stormwater management to mitigate, because there are no increases in either the peak rates of runoff or the volumes of runoff, because basically we're not changing any of the impervious surface in that area. But what we are going to do, however, is provide some water quality enhancements through the installation of a water quality structure, which is located right here. So and basically it's a hydrodynamic separator. So that will be receiving flow from the catch basins that are being proposed in the new parking area, as well as some of the existing catch basins that were back up and through here. So half of this rooftop area from the existing building, as well as the entire rooftop from the proposed building, as well as all the pavement that's along that southerly drainage divide, will all be directed through that catch basin system, and then from the catch basin system into the hydrodynamic separator, and then from there it'll be making a connection into the existing storm line, which will discharge into that detention basin that's down in the south corner. Now, for the northerly portion of the property, again, all the drainage that's out here right now for the existing parking is all kind of directed back to the basins, towards the two stormwater basins up through there. The fact that we are adding over 10,000 square feet of pavement through that area, we didn't want to try to take this runoff and redirect it back to the basins because of the storage capacities and everything else that exists within those basins. So what we opted to do for this particular area was to basically provide treatment just for the proposed surface area that's coming in through there, and we're doing that through the installation of a couple of catch basins. Both of the catch basins will have deep sumps and hooded outlets on them to basically trap the sediments as well as any floatables that might get into the system. And then from there, that runoff from the catch basins will be directed through to a underground gallery system, which will be located underneath the parking lot. I believe there's 34, 36 units of 4 foot wide by 8 foot long by 2 foot high concrete gallery units. We've done a number of deep tests out there as well as infiltration tests, and found that the soils are conducive to providing infiltration in through those areas. So with that being said, when we ran our final analysis, which the summary report should have been included with your application, what you'll see in there is that we provided for a 0 increase in peak rates of runoff for all storms that were analyzed, the 2-year through the 100-year event. And likewise, with the detention storage for the galleries as well as the infiltration, there will also be a decrease in the total volume of runoff that would be leaving the site for the proposed development. So the last item that I'd like to discuss with the commission is we've shown the incorporation of a 1 foot high berm that'll be proposed to be placed up along that southerly property line. And this is an attempt to being a good neighbor and trying to get some of this runoff from here to be diverted away from the rear of the 96 and 95 Wendy Road properties, and basically collect it in through this area and then carry it back down through this swale, which would eventually tie into the Oyster River. Because right now the topography really doesn't depict it, because there's undulations in the topography that are out in the field right now. So what'll happen is you get some rainfall events, the wetland system will collect some of the water. Some of that water will flow to the east, some of it will flow down to the south, some of it will flow to the southeast. So it kind of meanders and fluctuates within this area. So it was felt that by putting in this berm, and again, this is going to be if the commission's amenable to it or if they're agreeable to it, we would install this 1-foot berm along the perimeter here, which would basically direct all that flow away from the neighbor's property and through there. That area is pretty vegetated. There's a lot of saplings that are located within that area. So again, the berm through here would probably be field adjusted, so as to ensure that we're not cutting down any significant trees or significantly sized trees, I should say. There will be some saplings that'll get lost with the installation of the berm, but I think we could, if the commission's in agreement with the principles of what we're trying to do, then we could certainly get this berm in. If, on the other hand, if the commission believes that this is too much of an encroachment within the upland review area, it's our position that we really don't need to do anything here because no part of our proposal is impacting the back of this property here. All this runoff is really coming in from these properties up to the west here. Although also that drainage does flow across our property, it's not a source from anything that any part of the development on our property. And then the last item with respect to the wetlands and the protection of it, we've incorporated pretty much all the standard S&E measures for the site. We've got silt fencing, which will be installed along the buffer or along the perimeter area of the development. We have hay bale protection on all the catch basins that are being proposed. We have permanent vegetation, which will be put up in any of the graded areas, working up in the back there. And then for the parking area up in the front, we also have the construction entrance as well as silt sacks for the existing catch basins out on Robinson Boulevard. So I think with everything that we've incorporated on the S&E plan, it should provide adequate protection for anything that's within that upland review area. And again, most of the work that we're doing is basically within the footprint area of the pavement that's already out there. So there's not going to be a lot of ripped up or graded areas, with the exception of the 10,000 square feet for the parking here and a little bit of the grading work up and through here. The site should be capable of being pretty stable both during and post construction. So as a result of our design plans, the stormwater management system and the S&E measures, there will not be any significant impact to the on-site or off-site wetland resources, and we would respectfully ask this commission for approval of the proposal that's in front of them tonight. So with that, I mean, that basically concludes my presentation. So if the commission has any questions, I'll certainly try to answer them.
Thank you. Any of the commissioners have any questions?
Just one question. The wall that's there now, existing, that remains, it's not being replaced?
No, I think at this point, it's a concrete mafia block wall that's up through here. Some of the block is deteriorated, but it seems to be structurally stable. Again, we haven't done a formal analysis on it to do anything to try, because we looked at raising this area to cut down on maybe the steep slopes that were up in the back, but that would require a lot of engineering and a lot of extra work to go into it if you were going to remove the block wall and then reinstall and then try to reinstall something new up there.
Do you have a maintenance plan for the berm?
For the berm, I don't know if we include it on the S&E notes. Again, it's pretty innocuous. It's going to be basically about a foot high off the ground. So once that's established and we get it vegetated, there really shouldn't be any maintenance that's needed with it.
Okay.
Any other questions? No other discussion? Do we have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve with all the standard
standard. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All, I've just lost my train of thought, sorry. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, so moved.
Okay, thank you. Just a point of clarification. The commission is going to accept the berm then?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, very good. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, and good night. Thank you.
I'll be in touch tomorrow.
All right, we don't have any public hearings. I don't think we have anything else on the agenda. Hearing nothing. Motion to adjourn. Motion, thank you, John. Second, Jim. All in favor? Aye. So moved. Unless somebody's opposed.
I don't know, I didn't hear what it said.